All right, everybody, welcome. Thanks for coming this morning to our Big Brands and Agencies Yacht Side series here on the Cognitive Yacht at the Cognitive Yacht Club, as we like to say. Today, I'm really excited to share the stage with Horizon Senior Leadership, and I'd love for them to introduce themselves.
Thank you for having me. I'm John Koenigsberg. I am EVP of Platform Partnerships at the agency, and basically responsible for architecting the technology and data partnership ecosystem around our product, Blue Platform, and how we're innovating with partners like yourself to drive results for our clients.
I'm Nav Singh. I've been at Horizon for 10 years leading programmatic for them. And so a lot of what I've been focused on is leading their product and capabilities as well as representing a big portfolio. So happy to be here.
Great, thanks. And I'm Jeremy Fain, co-founder and CEO of Cognitiv. We're here to really celebrate a decade of deep learning. 10 years ago, we started this idea that deep learning, this now synonymous with AI, was going to be the technology that drives media buying, optimization, automation, really to the next level. And I'm excited today because Horizon is really innovating in this space. And I think, we've heard throughout the series how AI is actually being used. It's no longer talked about, it's really being used. And today, I really wanted to dig in with these two about how they're using AI. Do you want to introduce Blue? We want to talk a little bit
Come
about
out,
that.
Blue. Yeah, for sure. So I think the easiest way to understand what Blue is sort of three things. We think about it as Horizon's way of working. So it is this way of encoding everything we've learned about how to solve problems for clients in different categories, our research, our thought leadership, our expertise, problem solving. It is so that's the first piece, is like this distinct way of working. The second piece is that it is an AI native platform, and that means that we're manifesting that way of working and solving problems in a fundamentally new way with AI, and changing the way that all of that know-how that we've accumulated as an agency and continue to develop working with clients, like how it comes in and is brought forward into the way that people work. And the third piece is that it's a connected data and identity ecosystem. And so that know-how and those workflows are crucially like as smart as the data that is helping fuel those workflows. And so the data piece is really one. We have a Blue ID, which is an identity, tied to identity, about 260 million IDs that we partner with TransUnion on. So that's the identity component. And then we have about a dozen data partnerships where we're tying different signals, location, purchase, content consumption across channels, all back to that ID. So that ID persists across all of that data. So we get this 360 picture of how that one consumer or that one audience is interacting across channels and buying. And then we also marry our client first party data with that ID. So we open up the additional understanding of how those consumers are interacting with our client's business, and the other way, we open up this whole additional understanding of who the consumer is to our clients. And maybe we could talk more as we get in about how we're leveraging AI on top of all of that more specifically, but that's good. Those three things: data ecosystem, way of working, and AI native platform rolled into one.
All right, sounds like magic. Did it take 10 years to build this thing?
Well, we have been leveraging data with the philosophy of atomic and deterministic data tied to people, to mine for insights, to activate, to measure. That has been sort of a driving philosophy for the agency and our approach over the last 6-7 years. The platform, so totally re-architecting and reimagining how that data and the workflow is coming to life through an AI native platform. We initiated that about a year and a half ago, and we're now in market with that with our clients. And so it's been, I think it's a testament to how rapidly the technology has advanced that we've been able to do that in such short order. And we feel very fortunate that we didn't acquire like multi-billion dollar assets kind of pre-AI. We've done all of it kind of in this new technology paradigm, which has been a huge advantage.
I think one thing I'd like to add is like that new AI kind of like interface that we're talking about in the last couple of years, like it's just the way that we are able to interact with the data is a lot faster and it's a lot more nimble. It's what we kind of imagine standard AI today, and so I think that's like kind of propelled us in our journey.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point, is that it all started pre-AI with a data-centric idea, understanding how to get usable data out of all this programmatic data, of all this identity data. And you were doing it already, but it was slower, more manual. Now you put this AI layer on top that helps you interface with that data in a different way, correct?
Yeah. So I went through a rundown of kind of a little bit the architecture of the Blue ID and what's attached to it. Historically, we had data science teams that would be mediating access to that data because they had the technical skill sets to help us mine for insights against it, segment audiences against it. And so that sort of like supply chain from people who are working with the clients every day and have a deep intuition for the problems they have and what we're trying to solve, you had a lot of hops to the data itself, and you have like signal loss in that and very low margin for error, because like you get in a meeting and you talk about what you want from the data, and then people go and do work, and if like one or two things were off kilter, then you're potentially starting all over again. So by bringing LLMs into the equation of how the teams are interfacing with the data, not like the processes that took anywhere from 2 days to 10 days to really like weeks are now, seconds to minutes. Like you're building an audience in 2 minutes in literally in a process that took days. And I think it's the speed, but it's also people who now have a seat at the table with the data, like democratizing access to the insights, who otherwise like weren't interacting with the data in that way. And I think that's one of the most exciting pieces, is like you're bringing new fresh thinking to how we can leverage the data because you've made it more accessible to people.
And I think what it really helps with is like testing. I think you can test quickly and iterate quickly, and then if it doesn't work or it's telling us something about the data that's not working, I think what I like about our kind of like approach has been that it's open source, and so we can test new data sources and we can try to license that way as well, and figure out what works.
Yeah, I want to talk about the openness in a second, but to dig in a little bit more on the democratization. So Nav, I was lucky enough to see a little bit of how the technology works yesterday, and it just seems to me like you don't have to wait for your data scientists to do something for you now. Is that true? Like, can anyone that touches keyboards for you now think about some idea they're thinking, somebody who's the trader, they're like, I think this is happening. But now in the past, I have to talk to a data scientist. They have to do a whole search. They have to do all these things and then give me a report. It seems like they don't have to do that anymore.
That's exactly what's happening. I think we're getting trained internally across our programmatic trading team and our leadership. We're getting trained on how to prompt and how to interact with it. And I think before, I mean, to be honest with you, like we weren't even like there were some people having conversations around, how to talk to the data scientists, but even to the average trader, they weren't exposed to the data scientist. And so, those decisions were kind of being made separately, which it worked for what it was good for. But now it's a completely different ballgame because our programmatic team is going in there and building real strategies across the full funnel. And now they can interact with our kind of like platform to be able to do that much faster.
Yeah, it hit me really because even on our side, we've got our client success teams working with the agencies, et cetera. They know the KPIs. They know what the client's thinking. They're spending all day with those people.
Yep.
But our data science team can't do that. They're one step removed. And that disconnect just means things take a little longer.
Mhm.
And I think that you've sort of leapfrogged that problem. It's pretty amazing. Well, all right, let's talk about openness because John, you've really described Horizon's approach to as open and flexible by design. What does that mean for Horizon?
Um, yeah, well, we talked about the platform a little bit. It's I think about openness and by design as sort of two components to that. So the openness is really this belief that us, our clients, our partners, are all, as we connect together, we become this big problem-solving surface. And the more open you are, the more you're the more exposed you are to being able to solve more problems. And whether that's through data, through models, through technology, like all of that is expanding the universe of what we can do. And so our orientation to openness is sort of like rests on that belief. And I think it some of the benefits of that, aside from obviously you solve more, it gives our clients flexibility. There might be technology that they're already using and they don't want to uproot when they're working with Horizon. There is a transparency aspect in terms of we're not buying technology and trying to monetize it to our clients. We're finding, elite solutions in the market that solve problems. Everything is the North Star of what is going to drive growth for our clients, not, what's Horizon's bottom line. So that is like a very critical piece. And the technology is changing so fast. So the more open we are, the more kind of adaptive we are to a world that's changing. The by design part is that, like, if there's no intentionality, like openness without intentionality can like become just like a free for all. So that's a big part of my role is how we are thinking about the very specific technology enabled opportunities that we think will drive the most growth for our clients and who are the partners that give us the most leverage around those things. And so that's how we bring like kind of focus to that world.
So what makes a partner stand out in that process then? Like what do you look for in that make it easy for you to
Yeah.
test and
So
onboard?
we so aside from as we've been building the platform, I've recently run this RFI that is kind of flows directly from what I was just talking about. So a process where we reached out to like 175 companies across a wide range of areas, really every facet of the vision for where we want to continue to push the platform and its interoperability with other functionality. So we've been running that process. Within that process, there's about 7 different top line like criteria that we think about, and obviously like I think the first filter is what I was just talking about in terms of what are these priority areas that we think there's real untapped growth opportunity through technology. And so that's the first filter. The second filter are some of these other criteria, but I think the big standout to me is um, like the a little bit like the boldness of vision and the culture fit, because it's not just about like plugging things in as they are. It's really about finding people that want to co-build with us and co-innovate with us. And so I think that's just a huge piece of it is like, are are they the kind of partner that we're going to be able to do that together with when all the other kind of basic pieces are met?
I was just gonna say, I think we want to strategically position our clients with the most kind of like interoperable setup as possible, because that helps for full education of what they're learning and or what they're working with, and full transparency on the whole thing. And so I think when we work with these, when we do the RFI and we're interacting with these partners, we're seeing how open their data is going to be, and how kind of malleable it'll be to solve very existential um, questions or problems on behalf of our clients, versus just the standard route.
Right. And frankly, how does it fit into your data model? Because that's your platform's built on top of that. So Nav, we really want this series to be about real life uses of AI. So could you take us through an example or two of how your clients are using the platform, or how it's, accelerated what they want to do?
I think we're still in the training phases of kind of interacting with the UX, but I can give an example of the Blue platform, and kind of like solving like a custom solution. So, for example, I think we're trying to drive a bunch of appointments for Safe Light for a long time. I think traditionally we've relied on the AI solutions of the DSP partners, and I think while they are effective what we're looking to achieve, um, they're they don't get to the core of kind of like driving incrementality, let's just say. The DSPs are kind of designed to address a large sum of different advertisers and types. And so I think for a custom solution like that, that's where we're able to use Blue to do user level scoring, and use metadata that doesn't necessarily intuitively kind of like always make sense, and then make sense of it, and then target them, and see what works. And so we've been able to drive a lot of incremental lift that way, which is not a metric that you can necessarily optimize towards off the shelf.
Okay, so you have your database of understanding of the user. You do what then with that? You say, how do I actually make that audience?
Well, so we, I think like what we're trying to do is like get away from a preconceived notion of what the audience might be, right? So I think like, oh, I understand XYZ about my audience. I want to just target them. And it just becomes very like categorically targeting. And so instead of doing that, we kind of let our modeling determine what the best user is going to be, and see where the results drive. And so I think we've found every single time we've tested this product, for in terms of like user level scoring and custom bidding, we've succeeded. And so I think there's just a lot more opportunity for us to do that across not just one cut of metrics, but multiple metrics at the same time.
Just one add to that, that I think is an interesting distinction is this idea of aggregating aggregating a big audience based on shared interest or shared behavior. They've all done this, so they're all the audience, versus individual, like treating each individual uniquely. And I think AI is also like moving the ball forward, on our ability to make decisions at the person level, in ways that we just couldn't do before. And that's at the heart of what Nav was just talking about in terms of how we're leveraging AI to, in this case, like get very, very precise about the value of value from how much we're willing to invest in reaching that consumer at the ID level versus at this aggregate audience level. And I think we're going to see that also connect to creative personalization as well, and really serving not this even if this audience has already been thoughtfully conceived at sort of an aggregate level, that we can get even more personalized in terms of messaging and creative.
Yeah, that's absolutely the same conversation we have with our clients a lot of the time. Is they come in and say, okay, all of our research, and we know our client, and most of them are males 18 to 34. And we're like, okay, well, that's one part of them. That's 25% or 30% of them. What about the others? And we have found that the AI allows us to find every single one of those others. And they might be tiny clusters in the traditional sense of a demographic, but this allows us to see all of them versus have a preconceived notion. So we go back to them and say, well, don't you want us to just find your customers, not just this one part? And they're like, oh, that sounds like a better idea.
I mean, I could like a silly example was like I was looking up like an auto brand that it was like car buyers, right? And when you pull what indexes well against third party audiences in a traditional way that we were used to doing, um, the top thing that pulled up was like flower enthusiasts. And I just, how do you make sense of that? The taxonomy is kind of like all over the place. You can't really control it. And I would never know to intuitively target that because that was, so that's an example of like we don't need to go down that route anymore. And I think we can use AI to be able to build those like curated segments that we predict are gonna perform well.
Yeah, and the advertisers appreciate the newfound understanding, right? They can allow the AI to look into what's really going on, and identify new clusters of people to address creatively. All right. Well, we're almost out of time, so we've been wrapping up these sessions with a question of, we've been doing this for 10 years, but as we all know, things are accelerating quickly. So instead of asking what's going to happen in the next 10 years, we're just going to ask, what do you think is going to happen in the next 10 months in the space? It doesn't have to be about AI. Just what is the future gazer from you saying about 10 months from now?
Me first. Um, oh my God, there's so many ways to answer this
Is
one.
that too short or
no-
too long?
No, I think
Time.
well, I think something that's like make or break is if I like zig away from the technology for a second. I think Nav mentioned for a moment training and education, and I think about how like 5 years from now, maybe 10 years, I'll take your 10 years and I'll I'll do 10 months and 10 years. I think 10 years from now, I want people who were working at Horizon 10 years ago, 10 years ago, 10 years in the future to say, I feel very fortunate that I was at Horizon at this time because of how they helped me through what is like, we believe monumental change in what marketing work looks like. And so we are training people on the platform, but we're investing so much in broader training and education to help people really like build the skills and competencies and think about what their roles in the future are like, whether they're at Horizon or not. And I don't, I can't speak to what other companies are doing, but I don't think you can overestimate how important that is. I think and that it's not something that companies are like treating like a HR training. You're like trying to click through as fast as you can, so it's done. Like, and that it's sort of for the organization's liability versus that it's for you. And so that I think is hugely important, something that we're super focused on. And I hope that for the sake of our industry, that other organizations are taking just as seriously.
I think in 10 months we're just trying to all the problems that we've been looking to solve for leading up to. I just want that to get a little bit easier, and I think that's what I predict is going to happen. Is that those critical hurdles that we just weren't able to get past or solve on behalf of the client, I think are just going to get a little bit easier. And so I think that's going to be kind of like hopefully a daisy chain reaction into a much broader impact across all of our clients, and a new standard that gets set.
Great. Well, that's all the time we have. Thanks for coming and celebrating the decade of deep learning with us. That does it for today at the Cognitiv Yacht Club. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
And then we have some brunch and stuff downstairs inside if you're hungry.